Hello and welcome. In this video, I am going to cover some basic facts of HTTP. To begin with, I will talk about the networking protocols associated with the HTTP. I will then make a note of some fundamental facts related to HTTP. After that, I will introduce the idea of dumb and smart resources, which is a very fundamental concept. Finally, I will describe the URL structure using an example. So, let us now go to the opening topic, the context of HTTP protocol. In this diagram, this is the TCP IP stack. I hope you already have a basic understanding of the TCP IP stack because I am not going to discuss TCP IP in this video. The most important fact that you have to understand from this diagram is that HTTP works on top of TCP. Also, HTTP needs Domain Name System Protocol, which is referred to by the acronym DNS most of the time. The DNS in turn works on top of TCP and UDP. By contrast, HTTPS works on top of TLS protocol, which stands for Transport Layer Security Protocol. TLS itself works on top of TCP. In this course, I am going to explain HTTP, HTTPS and DNS, and I am not going to discuss TCP/IP. So, those are the protocols associated with HTTP. Let us now go to the next topic, which is some important notes on HTTP. The first thing to note is that the term web server may mean either the web server computer or the web server application. But the context should clarify what is being referred to. For example, when somebody says IP address of a web server, it is the web server computer, but when someone says port of a web server, it is the web server application. So generally the context should give you a hint as to what is being referred to. Next point is a web server application should listen for incoming requests on a particular port. This port number should be known to the users of the website. This info about the port number is always embedded in the URL. Next point is browser is always driven by some URL. By itself, a browser does not do anything. It is dumb. It just keeps quiet. A web server may serve multiple websites on the same port. I will explain more on this later on in the coming videos. Each website should have exactly one domain name, and this domain name should be published on the authoritative DNS server. I will explain more on this in the coming videos. So, those were some of the facts associated with HTTP which you should understand and remember. Let us now go to the next topic. This topic is about the HTTP resources. HTTP is all about making HTTP resources available to the browser. An HTTP resource is either dumb or smart. An HTML page is the most important example of a dumb resource. Images, audio and video files are also dumb resources. Smart resources, on the other hand, are programs which process input data. For example, a program which accepts user ID and password and decides whether they are correct or not is a smart resource. Smart resources are meant to be contacted by the browser for processing of input data. By contrast, dumb resources are only fetched and consumed. A static website has only dumb resources. A web application, on the other hand, has both dumb and smart resources. In any website, all the dumb resources are organized in a directory tree. The base of this directory tree is configured as the web root directory of that web server. Each resource has a path and a name. The path used in the URL is relative to the web root directory. Dump resources are fetched using GET request, and smart resources are contacted using either GET request or POST request. Again, I will explain more on this in the coming videos. So that was an introduction to HTTP resources. Let us now understand the structure of a URL for dump resources with an example. This is the general structure of a URL. This has 5 components. The first component is the scheme. Scheme can be either HTTP or HTTPS. Only 2 values are possible. Second component is the domain of the website. Third component is the port number on which the web server operates. If the port is omitted, then the browser assumes the port to be 80. In other words, there is no need to mention the port if the port is 80. The next component is the path of the resource. Note that the slash at the beginning is a part of the path. The last component is the name of the resource, and again the name, the preceding slash is a part of the name component. The first part of the URL, which has the scheme, domain and the port, is common for all the resources of a website. The second part is obviously different for different resources. Let us now understand this with an example. In this example, scheme is HTTP, domain is localhost, and port number is 3000. So now this part is common to all the resources on this web server. Let us now construct the complete URL for some resources. Consider the directory structure given here. Base directory is configured as the web root directory. Index.html is present in base directory. URL of index.html is like this. Page.html is present in dump resources directory, which in turn is inside the base directory. So the URL of page.html is like this. Similarly, image.jpg is present in dump resources directory, so the URL of image.jpg is like this. Other than specific resources, it is also possible to construct URLs for directories. When the browser accesses the URL of a directory, and if the web server allows it, a listing of the files in that directory is displayed in the browser. Let us now see how to construct the URL of a directory. This is the URL of the base directory, and this is the URL for the dump resources directory. Note that directory listing may be allowed or denied by the web server on a per directory basis. So I hope you now have an idea of how to construct the URL of a dump resource. That completes the discussion of the URL structure. Let us now make a brief recap of what we have learned so far. This whole video is about some basic facts of HTTP. We looked into the networking protocols associated with HTTP. We then noted some fundamental facts related to HTTP. We looked at examples of dump and smart resources. We understood how to construct URL of a dump resource on a web server. So that concludes this video. Thanks, and see you again in the next video.